Hey guys, and welcome back to the Journal of Huntsman, the podcast talking about everything, kind of like an audio journal, but we are centered on lifestyle, wellness, philosophy, and current events. At least that's the core of the show at the moment. So before we start, I did want to say a few things. First, you're appreciated, you're seen, and you're loved. I know I've been saying this at the start of all my episodes, and I will continue trying to do so because I think that it matters. Telling someone they're appreciated when they may feel undervalued, or that they're seen when they feel invisible, or that they're loved if they feel like they're alone, can make a really big difference in someone's life. And second, I'm expanding the show as much as I can right now, and recently I added the show to a few new listings and podcast directories. So now you can find the Journal of Huntsman on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprouts, YouTube, Instagram, Amazon Music, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, and Pocket Cast. I know this is a lot of places, but I want to make sure I can reach as big of an audience as I can. So if you know someone who's interested in podcasts, please share my show with them on whatever platform you wish. Now, on to today's topic. It's going to be about combat and martial arts. And while I know that can sound kind of violent, don't worry, because I'm going to explain the philosophy of combat to you, because it's a pretty important thing. It's beneficial for everyone, in my opinion. And so the first thing that I want to talk about is the difference between the two, combat and martial arts. When you talk about combat, I think it normally refers to general violence and a more physical show of force. When someone is combative, they're more prepared and intent on violent action. Maybe it doesn't have to be just violent action, but they are more intent on physical action. I started using ChatGPT more, and I actually asked if there was a difference between combat and martial arts. And if you haven't heard of it yet, ChatGPT is an incredible AI tool that can do a lot. It's helped speed up a lot of my side tasks in my day-to-day. Think of it like another kind of Google, but slightly more advanced and interactive. It's as if it's having a conversation with you. But back to the point, it refers to combat as real fighting or warfare, where the objective is to defeat an opponent through the use of physical force or weapons. And I like this answer, because it's similar to how I viewed combat in my life, especially the point where it refers to real fighting or warfare. I think that combat ties more into the physical and true sense of battle in the sense that it is right in front of you. But martial arts differs in that way as well. See, martial arts can be used in a very physical way, as a way to experience battle, but it is also way more than that. Martial arts can be used in a great variety of ways that benefit a person, and in fact, I think that martial arts plays into combat, where it prepares a person for combat. But going back to what GPT said, martial arts refers to various forms of training, techniques, and practices, usually for self-defense or sport, that incorporate physical and mental discipline, which may or may not involve actual combat. So to be blunt, combat and martial arts are different, but they can both rely on one another at different times. I've been a fan of martial arts since I was a boy, and I'm talking about the age when I first saw Dragon Ball Z or Teen Titans or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The moment I saw them fighting, I was hooked and thinking, wow, it's just so cool. Martial arts are just awesome. But there's so much more to it than just that. And as I started diving into it and learning to practice these martial arts, I started seeing the benefits of it all the time. And so one thing I want to try to explain to you all is a mantra that I started using for myself, and I made it about 1 or 2 years ago. It goes like this. So it's train the body, temper the heart, and polish the mind. 3 components to it. And I say that these 3 are powerful for so many reasons. So the first, to train your body is to make your physical body as strong as possible and push the limits and test what you can do. This plays a big part in martial arts because you'll be feeling soreness and pain most in your body. Training the body is not just about working out. That does play a big part in it, but you have to build literal physical strength. Second, temper the heart. I made this saying when I thought about a sword. Because to make a strong sword, you must temper the blade. And that's done by heating it to an incredible degree and then cooling it down and hammering it. And how I view it, we have to do the same for our emotions. Our hearts are the house of our emotions, like a nexus for everything that we can feel. The tempering process is letting ourselves feel emotions purely and powerfully, feeling them with intimacy, but then controlling our response to that emotion, not letting that emotion overtake us and direct what we do in the real world. And lastly, to polish the mind. With this step, I always envisioned our minds like balls or glasses that just contain so much within them. And the idea of polishing our minds comes from polishing a ball and seeing deeper into it. Letting things shine when they must shine and then function right, because our minds, they're the houses of our thoughts. we can think about. And if we do not polish that ability, then it's going to become dull. And the light from our minds is going to dim. Our ability to think is going to grow weaker. So this mantra is something that I made as I practiced martial arts, and it took a lot of time and effort. Honestly, years of practice and reflection on experiences, situations, and then knowledge. This is a mantra developed for martial arts that's geared towards all of life. Training your body, tempering your heart, and then polishing your mind are steps that I see are necessary to becoming a competent and well-lived person. So this mantra is something that I made as I practiced martial arts. And it took a lot of time and effort, just years of honest practice and reflection on experiences, situations, and knowledge. But this is a mantra developed through martial arts that's geared towards all of life. Training your body, tempering your heart, and then polishing your minds. They're all steps that I see as necessary to becoming a competent and well-lived person. Now, since I'm talking so much about martial arts, I wanted to take a chance to talk a little bit about what I practice, so you can get a sense of why it's so important to me and how I've been able to develop all this knowledge and ability to speak on these subjects, and if I'm, qualified to talk about any of it myself. So, I like to split my practice between two things, and that's weapons practice and hand-to-hand combat. In broad terms, I like to split the weapons practice between swordsmanship, spearsmanship, and then weaponry. And normally, I would just say that I practice kendo with a wooden sword, bow staff with a PVC pipe, and also eskrima sticks with other PVC materials that I made for myself. Two that I'm most comfortable with are definitely swordsmanship and bow staff, but I like the flow of all three of them, and they work together very well from my experience so far. I started practicing with the sword first, and that's because I've always been in love with swordsmanship since I was in high school. In fact, I think I was always in love with swords first because almost every character I remember growing up used a sword. From Power Rangers to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they all had one. But then I started loving to work with a bow staff as well, during COVID. I made ones for myself out of PVC pipe when I went to a hardware store. The eskrima sticks were another addition that I found incredible to practice because they were challenging in a different way, but I actually got involved with them over TikTok. I post some of my work with mainly a sword or staff on my channel because those are what I've been engaged with mostly. But time spent training with these weapons overall has been like 4 or 5 years of swordsmanship, and then 3 years of bow staff and eskrima stick training. I will also admit that I don't have a teacher. I have not taken a lot of classes using these weapons, but I have been very involved in research, looking online for manuals or direction or any tips, techniques, or skills that I can learn to better my skills. And it's been helpful. Now, moving on to hand-to-hand combat, I would say I practice boxing, taekwondo, and then jiu-jitsu. With hand-to-hand combat, I think those are the best. And yes, I say the best combination of practices that you can really know. That's because they create such a good synergy that you become like a really dangerous person if you think about it. You're just ready for combat in any situation that life may throw at you. Like, let's take boxing, for example. It's all about teaching you how to hit and not get hit. Both with the focus on footwork and head movement, and then variations of fast punching motions. Taekwondo is about movement and fluidity. You have to be a little more agile and flexible to use your lower body in a creative way for this one, but once you get the hang of it, it can be really fun. Then jiu-jitsu, and especially Brazilian jiu-jitsu, is one of those really dangerous martial arts that you'll hear about, because you're able to get someone and put them in submission so fast if you learn it, man, and it's dangerous. Like, that's the only way I could really think about saying it. It's very dangerous. But by practicing all of these, you get a very good synergy where you're just ready for combat in any form or scenario. And now I think this gives me a good transition into the next part of the episode. So I already talked about the forms of martial arts that I practice, both with weaponry and hand-to-hand combat, and I also touched on the mantra that I use as well. But now I want to talk about the real benefits that I noticed from knowing how to fight, knowing how to engage in combat, and then understanding martial arts, both the practical implementation and the spiritual benefits as well. So recently, I started listening to a show called The Mulligan Brothers, and they're on Instagram, YouTube, wherever. And there's also a certain segment of an interview they did with a Buddhist monk that I resonated with so heavily because it just tackles the exact reason why I try to build this strength and why it matters. The monk says, demon's hand, Buddha's heart. Develop the demon's hand while at the same time maintain the Buddha's heart. Demon hand, demon heart is no good. You become a threat to this world. Demon hand, Buddha's heart. to be able to assess something and then decide with your heart what you think of it or not. Now, I'm going to play this quote for you as well, so you'll actually hear his pauses, his voice with it. But the moment I heard that quote, I fell into a kind of trance because it hit me at the perfect moment. It was like this perfect reasoning for strength and how I should strive to act myself, to be capable of violence but not choose to be violent, to hold the power to cause pain, but instead bring forth love. These are virtues of character and then true signs of strength in a man or a person. To develop the demon's hand means to develop power, and just power. A potentiality for chaos and violence, a kind of threat to what's around you. And to temper this power with endurance and self-sacrifice, that is how you will maintain the Buddhist heart. And it's a very delicate game that we have to play within ourselves, but it's more than possible. For anyone seeking strength, it's also a responsibility in my mind. And it's a responsibility because power is easy. Power can be wielded by anyone or anything seeking to cause pain or strife or chaos in the world. That's where the demon's hand comes in, but it takes true strength to control and hold that back. To change what we can do for the better and leave an effect in the world that leaves love in the air around us. I see those who practice a philosophy of combat, either born through repetition or solely from experiences, as people that have this demon's hand in Buddha's heart. It's a strength of character that you build up over time and through dedication, courage, trials and tribulations, and honest hell. Strength of character is what the philosophy portion of combat builds in a man. It builds a kind of confidence in who you are and what you're capable of. Confidence, calmness, peace, an appreciation of life at the moment, and gratitude are things I noticed grow stronger as I started to develop this philosophy. And while those are great, I want to make sure I want to explain them as well. When you practice martial arts, it's going to take time. It's going to take dedication. It will likely be painful. One thing I've learned in the past few years, though, is that we have one of two choices. We can choose the pain of discipline, or we can choose the pain of regret. And we have to choose wisely. The more you choose to work on and develop yourself, the more confident you will become. And the more proof of who you are will be built into yourself. That is confidence. It's not just telling yourself that you are who you say you are. It's not just believing in yourself, but it's by proving to yourself that you can do what you say you're going to do, and prove that you're becoming who you know you can be. I think that the capacity for violence plays a part in that, especially for men. And it's not just a capacity for violence, but it's being able to generate physical power. The most basic form of power that we can really generate for ourselves is by using our bodies, and that's the important thing. That's the first benefit you really start to develop by practicing martial arts and working out. You build a system of proof that you are strong, and while it's strong physically, that is still being strong. But it goes further than that, because physical strength means nothing without mental strength, or emotional strength as well. See, each of them play into one another, and you take time building them up as you live. As you go through more experiences, more situations, more trials and tribulations, you start to rely and develop. And that's, again, touching back to the mantra, to train your body, temper your heart, and then polish your mind. They create a synergy where they build you up as a person. Whether you're a man or a woman, they build you up into who you are. So, another thing that I wanted to talk about is some misconceptions that people have on martial arts, especially when it comes to teaching kids and young boys. You hear and see what martial arts can do. And even in this episode, I'm talking about the potentiality for violence and the ability to use power in the world. All of it can sound bad to a person, but I think that's only when you let it go without control. I think martial arts should always be done and learned with a mindset to use it only when needed or necessary. Never to attack first, but be prepared to attack if the time ever comes. And the things that really hit home for me are found in that process. It is a process of learning to develop, build, and improve upon your own martial art. Starting kids in that process early would help because they learn self-control, they learn discipline, they learn dedication, and then also introspection. And for an adult, I think all those are qualities that they'd be praised for and sought after, and for good reason, because they each allow you to live a good life and as a good person. It goes back to the saying about the demon's hand in the Buddhist heart. We We have to teach ourselves to fight, but to only fight with reason. To develop the demon's hand and maintain the Buddhist heart is along the path of building strength and virtue. For myself, I created a saying: pursue virtue, develop strength, and give love. 3 simple and very basic principles which have really helped me recently. Virtue, the highest kind of behavior we can have as a person. Strength, the kind of power built up from one's character and experiences. And love, I don't think love needs to be defined, but it's the appreciation, warmth, and kindness that we need in our lives. Learning martial arts and being prepared to fight have all taught me a lot of things, and what I mentioned in this episode has been just a few of them. I wouldn't be who I am today that I haven't spent years practicing and working on all of these things. And so I hope you can find some encouragement to learn it for yourself too. Everyone, anyone in my opinion, should take the chance to learn at least self-defense. That's just as a basic practicality. Knowing how to protect yourself in the world is vital to living in it. And second, picking up a martial art starts a journey that few travel down, but it becomes worth it in the end. Now, that's all for today's episode. Thank you for listening and checking out the podcast, and another reminder for you that you're appreciated, you're loved, and you're seen. Continue living and doing your best today, and don't stop trying regardless of how hard things get. I hope you can tune in for the next episode of the Journal of a Huntsman, and see you next time.